This video discusses real historical violence. Viewer discretion is advised.
In the early morning hours of June 10, 1912, a quiet town in Iowa woke up to something unimaginable. 8 people, brutally murdered in their sleep. No screams, no witnesses, no arrests. Over 100 years later, the Villisca Axe Murders remain one of the most chilling unsolved crimes in American history. This is what happened, and why it still haunts people today. Villisca, Iowa, in 1912, was a town built on routine. Farming schedules, church on Sundays, neighbors who waved as they passed each other on dirt roads. There were fewer than 1,200 people living there at the time. Crime was rare. Violence was almost unheard of. This was the kind of place where doors were left unlocked, where children walked to school alone, where everyone knew the Moore family. Josiah Moore was a respected businessman who sold farm equipment. He was known as hardworking, serious, and dependable. His wife, Sarah Moore, was deeply involved in the church. She organized children's events, helped neighbors, and was described as gentle but firm. Together, they had 4 children: Herman, Catherine, Boyd, and Paul, all under the age of 12. On the night of June 9, 1912, 2 guests were also staying in the Moore home: Lena and Ina Stillinger, sisters who had attended church with the family that evening. 8 people went to sleep in that house. All 8 were found dead the next day. That Sunday evening began normally. The Moore family attended a children's church program, the same one the Stillinger sisters participated in. Afterward, they walked home together, talking, laughing, completely unaware of what was coming. They arrived home around 9:30 p.m. Lights were turned off. Doors was locked, or so they thought. Each person eventually settled into bed. One by one, the lights inside the house were turned off. The Moore home grew still. Floorboards stopped creaking. Voices faded. Breathing slowed. From the outside, the house looked exactly as it always had: dark, quiet, ordinary. But silence doesn't always mean empty. At some point after midnight, something shifted inside the house. Not the sound of a door opening. Not the breaking of glass. Just the moment when the night stopped being peaceful. This was when the attacker decided it was time. Sometime after midnight, the killer made their move. There was no forced entry, no broken windows, no signs of struggle at the doors. The first victims were Josiah and Sarah Moore. They were attacked in their sleep, struck repeatedly in the head with the blunt end of an axe. The blows were powerful, deliberate, and fatal. Investigators later believed Josiah may have been struck so hard that the blade partially embedded into the ceiling above him. After killing the parents, the attacker did not flee. Instead, they went upstairs. At the top of the staircase were the bedrooms of the Moore children: Herman, Catherine, Boyd, and Paul. Each child was asleep. The rooms were small, familiar, safe. Or at least they should have been. Investigators later believed the attacker moved carefully, step by step, along the upstairs hallway. There was no sign of a struggle between rooms, no overturned furniture, no evidence of panic spreading through the house. The children were attacked in their beds. Some of them appear to have been struck while still asleep. Others may have woken up later. Examinations suggested at least one child suffered defensive injuries. Whatever awareness they had was brief. There was no time to run, no time to scream. The blows were delivered with the same weapon, using the same method, as if following a deliberate pattern. What stands out most is the order. The attacker did not rush. They did not skip rooms. They moved from bed to bed with disturbing patience. Once the children were killed, the attacker covered their faces, a detail that has troubled investigators and historians for decades. Whether it was an act of guilt, ritual, or something else entirely, no one knows. But it suggests the violence wasn't random. It was controlled. And when it was over, the upstairs of the Moore house fell silent once again. 4 children gone, and still, the night was not finished. Finally, the killer went downstairs to the guest bedroom. Lena and Ina Stillinger were sleeping in the same bed. They were struck repeatedly. One of the girls was found partially off the bed, suggesting she may have woken up or tried to move away. She didn't make it. By the time the killer was finished, 8 people were dead. But the night wasn't over yet. After the final blow was struck, the house should have gone quiet. The attack was over. 8 people were dead. But the killer didn't leave. Instead of fleeing into the night, investigators believe the attacker remained inside the Moore home, moving through it calmly, deliberately, as if there were no fear of being discovered. This is where the case becomes especially disturbing. One by one, mirrors throughout the house were covered with pieces of clothing and cloth. In 1912, this was often associated with death rituals, a way to prevent spirits from becoming trapped, or to shield the living from what had just occurred. Whether the killer believed in that tradition, or was acting on something else entirely, is still unknown. Windows were then covered or draped, blocking the view from outside. The house was sealed off from the world. Whatever happened next was done in private. The axe, the same one used to kill all 8 victims, was wiped clean. It wasn't discarded. It wasn't hidden. It was left inside the home. Near it, investigators found a slab of bacon and a bowl of water. This detail baffled authorities. Some believed the bacon was used to cover the blade, possibly to muffle sound or prevent slipping during the attack. Others believe it may have been part of a ritual, or simply a habit of the killer. No explanation has ever been confirmed. What is clear is that these actions took time. Minutes passed, possibly longer. There was no rush, no sign of panic. The killer moved through a home filled with the dead, as if they were completely at ease. Even more unsettling is what didn't happen. No valuables were taken. No obvious motive like robbery or revenge was left behind. Nothing about the scene suggested desperation, only control. When the killer finally did leave, however, and whenever that happened, they vanished completely. No one saw anything. No one heard anything. No trace was left behind that could ever lead to an arrest. By the time morning came, the house stood exactly as it had been left, dark, silent, and holding secrets that would never fully be understood. As the sun rose over Villisca on the morning of June 10, 1912, nothing appeared unusual from the outside. The Moore house sat quietly on 2nd Street. No signs of disturbance. No broken windows. No raised alarms. But as the morning passed, neighbors began to notice something was wrong. The Moore children never came outside to play. Josiah Moore didn't leave for work. The house remained completely still. Concern slowly turned into unease. By mid-morning, a neighbor approached the home and knocked on the door. There was no answer. Eventually, the door was opened. What was discovered inside shocked the entire town. The scene was described as one of the most horrific crimes in Iowa's history. Blood stained the beds. Walls bore the marks of repeated blows. Entire rooms felt heavy, dark, and suffocating. Word spread quickly. Within hours, the house was filled not just with law enforcement, but with townspeople, reporters, and onlookers. Children were lifted up so they could see inside. Evidence was touched. Objects were moved. Footprints were trampled. Before investigators could fully understand the crime scene was already destroyed. Authorities arrived from nearby towns and eventually from across the state. But this was 1912. There was no DNA testing, no fingerprint databases, no modern forensic science. Investigators relied on witness statements, rumors, and instinct. The lack of forced entry puzzled them. So did the methodical nature of the killings. During the search of the house, investigators discovered something deeply unsettling in the attic: cigarette butts. Josiah Moore did not smoke. No one in the Moore family smoked, and there was no reason for anyone to be smoking in the attic. The discovery led to a chilling theory that the killer may have entered the house earlier in the evening while the family was away at church and waited above them in the attic, listening, watching, waiting for the house to fall silent. The idea that the killer may have known the house or had been inside before began to take hold, but without solid evidence, theories quickly outpaced facts. Several suspects emerged in the weeks and years that followed. One of the most infamous was Reverend George Kelly, a traveling minister with a history of mental instability. He had been in Villisca around the time of the murders. He had previously expressed disturbing thoughts. Kelly eventually confessed, then recanted. His confession was inconsistent and later believed to have been coerced. Another suspect was Frank Jones, a local businessman who had a strained relationship with Josiah Moore. Jones was wealthy, influential, and never formally charged. Other theories pointed to serial killers known to be active in the Midwest during that era. None could be definitively linked to the crime. Trials were held, accusations were made, but every case fell apart. No one was ever convicted. The Villisca Axe Murders became a perfect storm of investigative failure. The crime scene was contaminated almost immediately. False confessions clouded the truth. Public pressure pushed authorities toward weak suspects. As time passed, witnesses died, memories faded, evidence disappeared. What little remained was not enough. The case slowly went cold, 8 people murdered, and no justice served. More than a century later, the Moore house still stands. It has been restored to look exactly as it did in 1912. People travel from all over the world to see it. Some come for history, others out of curiosity, and some believe the house is haunted. Visitors report hearing footsteps, children's voices, doors opening and closing on their own. Paranormal investigators call it one of the most active locations in the country. Whether you believe those stories or not, the weight of what happened there is impossible to ignore. The Villisca Axe Murders remain one of America's most disturbing unsolved crimes. 8 lives were taken in a single night. A peaceful town was forever changed, and a killer vanished without a trace. More than 100 years later, the house still stands, silent, waiting. And the question that refuses to fade remains the same. Who was inside that house that night? And how did they walk away without ever being caught? If you enjoyed this video, please consider hitting like and subscribe. Thank you.